So good day. This is Kevin. I'm with Mikey, Michael James. This is the Dangerous Data podcast. We talk about things like free speech, censorship, data sciences, and ethics. Basically, we look at the intersection between mankind and technology and the policies that affect all of us in terms of how we live our lives and have privacy and just go on to pursue our individual liberties. Mike is a longtime friend of mine, and Mike, I'll let him tell more about himself, but Mike was a professional in the medical, wasn't it the medical industry?
Yeah, in the basically the business side of the medical industry. Yeah.
So, and pretty high up, junior executive, if not further, and did that for a number of years. That was his first life. He retired early, took a bunch of money and invested into running a fun conspiracy theory, alien, Bigfoot brand, and it went really well until the algorithms changed. And so I wanted to bring Mike on to talk about his experience in dealing with AI ethics, algorithms, and the injustice that censorship brings. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself and your history.
Sounds good. Thank you. First off, thanks for having me, Kevin. It's good to chat with you again. Good to see your face. So I appreciate you having me on, especially on this topic, because it's one of those things that I know and I know that it has affected me greatly. I know that it's affected you, and I can only imagine how many other countless individuals are out there that may have experienced something similar. God forbid they have experienced something worse. So just a little bit of background on me. Like Kevin said, I have a master's in business administration. I have a master's degree in healthcare administration. I spent roughly 10, 12 years in the insurance and finance industry. And then I transitioned into, like I said, the business side of healthcare. So I'm not a physician or anything like that. But basically I was on my way to being like, hospital administrator, CEO of a hospital, that sort of thing. So without going into too many details about why I left, basically I was dissatisfied with the way that things were handled within the medical structure, I guess. And it was also kind of a family decision for between me and my wife that we wanted one parent to be at home with our children, and she has a wonderful career as a ambulatory care pharmacist, and she is on her way up, up, up. So it was decided that I would be the one that would stay home, since I was a little bit jaded at that point anyway. A little bit is an understatement. So, so
in terms of equity and inclusion.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast right there. And looking back on it now, I'll just throw this in there real quick. With the way that I view the world, there's a very, very, I'm not even going to say a very good chance, I'm going to say a 100% chance that I would have been fired from any medical institution I was working for, because Kevin knows this about me. I don't put up with the lunacy that's going on right now, and I'm not afraid to be vocal about it either. So I basically just, I went ahead and caused the inevitable to happen sooner than it would have. So but yeah, so when I left and basically became a stay-at-home father, one of the things that I had always wanted to do was run my own business. So I started exploring different ways to make money online. At the time, I had, a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. So one of them was, just starting kindergarten. The other one was obviously home all the time. So it's not like I can go to an office or something like that, or take on a different type of job. So I started looking into ways to make money online, and I've always had kind of like a passion for design. Like, I've always liked to draw. I'm a musician. You can see the guitars behind me. I have a drum set across from me and on the other side of the room. So when it comes to like art and that sort of thing, I've always been really interested in that. And from a design perspective, I kind of fell into a program offered by Amazon where I could upload designs to Amazon and they would put them on t-shirts and hoodies and so forth, and they would sell. So going down that road, I really kind of found my niche in like aliens, UFOs, Bigfoot, cryptids, paranormal type of stuff, and conspiracy theory stuff. Um, that has always been something that I was interested in as, I don't know if you call it a hobby or a weird fetish or whatever you want to call it, but it's something that I was always interested in. So I was like, well, geez, I probably know more about this stuff than the average Joe out there on the street. Why don't I make some t-shirts and target that market? And I can really speak to those people that have the same types of interests that I do. And the way that I was going to differentiate myself, if you've ever seen any of the t-shirts out there that are targeted, towards like aliens and UFOs, they're really corny. Like they're bad, dude.
Yeah, I know.
They're bad. And it all has to do with acid and drugs and tripping out. And I'm like, I'm 100% sober. I haven't had a drop of alcohol in like 4 years. Never really did a whole lot of drugs. Um, so I kind of stepped outside of that realm, and I was like, okay, I'm going to make something that is actually cool looking, that is going to target more of the the deep thinker on these subjects, as opposed to a guy with a stamp of acid on his forehead talking about UFOs, right?
Right.
So um when I started it, I kind of tested the waters with some different platforms, and it went really, really well. And given that result, I moved into opening up my own Shopify store. And at the outset, and really at the point where I knew enough to have my own Shopify store, by no means did I know enough to really launch or sustain, a Shopify store that was actually going to make a decent amount of money. But not even knowing, the technology side of it and kind of the marketing, the online marketing aspect, I just kind of said screw it, and I went with what I knew, and I failed a lot, and I learned things, and it was actually going very, very well until I decided to step it up a notch. And I looked at it and said, okay, this thing is going really well. I wouldn't say minimal investment at the time, but from the perspective of, okay, I want to take what I'm making right now per month, and I want to multiply that times 10. Here's the steps that need to be taken to get there, right?
Right.
And a lot of those steps involve creating more content, like writing a blog, doing a podcast, a lot more interaction on social media, that sort of thing. And as soon as I started taking those steps, really putting, my voice out there, right off the bat, I want to say it was within like a month of doing that all of a sudden, I went into Facebook one morning, and I was going to check on, see how my ads were doing. And I was probably going to run some new ads that I had created the night before. And I go to post a new ad, and it says, oh, your account is permanently banned.
Yep.
Your Facebook advertising account is permanently banned.
No warning, no
nothing.
No,
just
no peace left.
See you later. Just like, screw you, Mike, you're done. All right. So obviously that was a bit shocking. I immediately jumped onto Facebook support, where you can chat with a live person from Facebook. And I don't consider myself this savvy, but I got this person on the other end to admit that they had set me up. Long story short, this agent from Facebook on the other line, or on the other end of the line, essentially said, "Oh no, your account is permanently banned because you've had multiple violations."
But they didn't warn you.
They never told me about those multiple violations. I still can't find those multiple violations. I don't know where they are.
Yeah.
So I called, for some reason, I think it was a woman. I don't know why. So I called her out on it and I said, okay, wait a minute. You said I have multiple violations. I'm looking at my dashboard right now. I have 0 violations. And her response was, well, due to proprietary matters within Facebook advertising, we don't inform some people of prior violations.
So all the money you spent,
But went nowhere. Yeah. And if I look at how much money I spent on Facebook ads at that point in time,
you'd already spent tens of thousands, over almost $20,000.
yeah, it was around 20 grand.
So that's not
So-
that's not a small investment. That's that's
no, I mean, for a guy working out of his basement, one man show, it's, it's not like I'm just throwing money around saying, here you go, look, have some more. So yeah, I basically got them to admit that they had set me up, and I called her out on it. And I said, oh, so you're admitting that you set me up, to basically enforce a permanent ban with, without any prior knowledge. You covered up the previous violations and you just went straight for the permanent ban. And once I said that, I got the little notification at the bottom. It says this chat has ended. And that was the end of it.
oh, so you decide when the call's over.
Yeah. She was like, oh, I screwed up, man.
I shouldn't have said anything.
But what was it, about 2 or 3 months later, all of a sudden my Facebook advertising account was back. Needless to say, I did not pour any more money into Facebook advertising after that experience. So yeah, I mean, long story short, you've got basically me being set up because they didn't like my message,
which was aliens, Bigfoot, and conspiracy theories about government.
Yeah. I mean,
hiding aliens, bro. That's
exciting. Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff was, I guess you could consider it on a more serious note. When I got into talking about like things that had happened in the past with basically government cover-ups that are documented. I mean, this stuff is no secret at all.
You got fact-checked and banned for
MK
Ultra.
Yeah.
And now there's a movie out. Have you seen the MK Ultra movie?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Yeah, so I remember one of the biggest bans that you had was we did an entire podcast on MK Ultra and an entire campaign on it. And they're Ixnay on the Ombre.
They did not like that one.
Instant ban. You cannot talk about MK Ultra on Facebook.
Yeah. And the thing was, like I said, it's MK Ultra existed. Okay, that's no secret. All right. The depths to what it's gone, I know that there's a lot of information out there that's still being withheld. But when we would talk about that type of thing, it was like, hey, it was pure speculation.
Right.
It's not like I would sit there and say this is 100% fact. It was, here's what I think. So in other words, here's my opinion. All right. And that's the type of stuff that was getting me banned, especially when we started relating MK Ultra, what had happened in the past with, government documents and so forth. And then you start to relate it to, propaganda and how it's used currently. And also with, what's the term I'm looking for? Basically utilizing the media to condition people.
Oh yeah, social engineering.
To be okay. Yeah, social engineering.
Manufacturing consent.
Yes. If you see, even though something is wrong, the first time you see it, you think, well, that's messed up. But if you see it 1,000 times, all of a sudden you're okay with it.
Right.
It's kind of like all the movies with, I mean, I see somebody die in a movie, I don't care. It doesn't bother me.
Right.
It probably should, but it doesn't because I've seen it so many times. So when you start, you're taking factual evidence and then you're critically thinking about it, you're forming opinions about it, and then you're applying it to current situations and how it might be intertwined. That's where, all the buzzers go off on Zuckerberg's yacht and they start hitting all the buttons to get you shut down everywhere. And then they call Google
Right.
and
Let's talk about the
Pinterest and Instagram. They call every other social media company and say, okay, all these accounts are connected.
Yes.
Start shutting this guy up. And that's exactly what happened.
Yep. So for the audience that is listening, what I found interesting is when it was before the 2020 election, the heads of the various social networks, Google, Facebook, Twitter, whatnot.
And sorry, Kevin, just to interrupt you real quick. One thing that I did want to say was I didn't go into the conspiracy niche as a result of all of the wild things that have happened over the course of the last 2 years.
It was before it happened.
I launched my Shopify store in October of 2018. So I didn't look at the craziness of the world and say, oh man, I could profit off of this. I just happened to be
into aliens and Bigfoot
in the right spot at the right time,
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh, Mike, you're a conspiracy theorist. And then everything blows up. And yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
No worries. What I found interesting was that they have a common back end like CRM system that is used by Facebook, Twitter, Google, Apple, and a bunch of other media companies. So they have CRM that it's like a social credit score that limits narratives across the social networks based upon their ranking. So once you get deep, that's why it's so interesting, because I remember I lost my Facebook account that I'd had since 2008. And within 30 days, within 2 weeks, I'd also lost my Twitter. But I didn't do anything wrong on Twitter. That was the Twitter that I also had since 2008. And then I also lost my YouTube. So everything that was attached to that name, that brand, that was all tied together, because you know how they want you to link in your accounts. So that was 2018, late 2018 when that happened. That's when I started like realizing that this censorship deplatforming was coming for all of us if we didn't, if we dared question. And what's interesting is you don't have a chance to. So this all comes back to ethics, right? So AI ethics, it's not transparent. So one, it's not transparent. Two, there's no grievance process. So they create a social contract with you, Mike, that you let's be honest, you spent probably upwards approaching $50,000 on a business that was doing okay until all of a sudden, without warning, you're canceled. And then not only were you canceled on Facebook, you were canceled on Google AdWords, and it was all the way across the board. And you're not out there doing, discussions on, the Jones level. You were talking about aliens, the mysterious.
I mean, essentially, I was having a good time. Saying, look, if you want to believe me, great. If you have questions, great. If you think I'm full of it,
I don't know how. Thanks for watching. I don't know how secret Nazi bases in Antarctica is such a dangerous. I mean, for crying out loud, So, here, the reason I wanted to have you on is I wanted the audience to understand that misinformation sounds like you're stopping harm from happening, but what ends up happening is you have nameless, faceless algorithms, and then people with insert here questionable ethics and values and personal, let's just be honest, they're biased in one way, shape, or form, that are limiting speech and the ability to make income. And this is what strikes me is you've started new brands and businesses since then.
Yeah.
And you have been exceptionally successful because you're not on the topics that are supposedly verboten. So,
Correct.
Here,
the crazy, to touch on that, the crazy thing is, essentially what I've done is I've gone into the services business. Okay. I still have the brand. The brand was called Thread Weird for anybody that's interested. I still have that on Etsy. I never I've never really had a problem with Etsy, to be honest with you. Some of the conspiracy stuff did get taken down, but it is because it got reported by somebody else. They're like, "Oh, I'm offended. Take that down," and Etsy just pulls it down. Whatever, I don't care. So I still have the brand out there, but there is zero. I mean, and I'm talking absolute zero activity as far as any social media or Google platform is concerned. Okay. I basically have them on Etsy. If somebody finds it and they buy something, great. All right. I make an extra $20. All right. The industry that I've gone into is during that time when I was building this t-shirt brand, I obviously learned a lot about graphic design and different resources that are out there in regard to graphic design. So I looked at it from the perspective of, okay, well, this stuff seems pretty commonplace to me. But when I really look at it, I've been in this world for the last 5 or 6 years, and I've been learning the whole time. So why don't I target small business owners, people that don't have, gigantic budgets, people that say, look, I got a new business and my business is going very well. I don't have a logo. I don't have business cards. I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have that. And I don't have time to do this crap on my own. That's where I would come in. I started this thing probably 4 months ago. Because believe it or not, I had my Shopify store open until about March. I should have closed it a lot sooner than that, but I fell into the emotional trap of, oh, it's gonna work this time. But it's not. So I finally shut it down. And then I started this services business. And like you said, the amount of growth that I've experienced with essentially no marketing, just having a business page on Facebook, just having an Instagram with very limited activity, having my business listed on Google and Google your business, so like you get found locally and that sort of thing.
You can tell the difference between
it's incredible. It's incredible the amount of growth that I've experienced in just a 4-month amount of time versus 5+ years.
5+ years and thousands of ad dollars spent.
Yes, I have spent. If I look at my books for this new business, I am all in the green, because for about every ad dollar I spend, which is very, very limited, and I'm not utilizing like Google ads or Facebook ads or anything like that. I'm using different avenues like local venues and kind of similar venues in different cities across the United States. If I look at what my return on ad spend is, I bet you, and I haven't done the math on it, but I'm just taking a guess, for every dollar that I spend in advertising, I bet you I make 15 to 20 back.
See, and that's not,
and it blows my mind how fast it.
That's the issue of algorithmic justice, right? And transparency. So in the world of data ethics, you always have to, so what I find interesting is when I go through the courseware like Harvard, Stanford, or any of the leading universities that provide courseware for free online, I'll make sure I put those in the links as well, is that they always talk about algorithmic justice. And I find it interesting that they, for example, they want to have equity of outcome versus equity of opportunity. And equity of outcome means that you throttle what you determine as a hierarchy, something that has hierarchy or existing power.
Mhm.
So let's just say single white people, and when you talk about white family, Google results will show a black person within that family. This has nothing to do with race. You can find it across the board. And so they call that algorithmic justice. And so algorithmic justice means that somebody somewhere determines what is the value set in the calculus that needs to be represented on the outcome. All algorithms, by nature, by the fact that they are algorithms, are biased, right? So the fact that that they're not transparent, I think, is the biggest failure that we have in terms of the questions on ethics. It should,
Yeah.
it should say, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish, and this is how it's ranked. You don't have a mystery warehouse where the sausage is made, and then let people guess what they're getting on the other end.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think go ahead.
yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. If you're going to utilize an algorithm, it should be, for lack of a better term, I guess, a pure, unbiased algorithm. And that's not what you have right now. An excellent example of this would be the TikTok algorithm in America versus the TikTok algorithm in China.
Exactly. And
The algorithm for TikTok in America rewards and boosts
stupidity.
idiocy.
Yes.
The
Yes.
dumber and raunchier it is, the more popular it's going to be in America. Now, in China,
social engineering, which is again social engineering.
They're making us dumber.
Yes.
That's the goal, to make people do stupid things and to want to be, the saying, quit making stupid people famous. Okay. You could look at the algorithm and say, algorithm, quit making stupid people famous. But on the other side of that, if you look at the algorithm for the TikTok in China, it boosts and rewards content that focuses on education and accomplishment. So if you have a young girl in China, shaking her ass and then falling off a fence into a hole, nobody's going to see that.
Right.
In America, that's going to go viral.
What people don't realize is that in the digital age that we're now living in, that we use terms that sound good, like justice, equity, fairness, safety. But what those terms really mean are, we're going to manipulate the conversation and the data to what a preconceived message is.
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk had a very interesting tweet yesterday where he said, I don't know who gets to decide what the current thing is. And I thought that was interesting because he understands.
Well, it implies that there is somebody that gets to decide that.
Right. And he knows
that. Yeah.
And I thought it was very interesting that, so let's just talk about algorithmic justice, right? I've noticed I have multiple, I've got like maybe 7 to 11 Twitter accounts I'm running right now on any given day. And they're across, one is harm reduction, the other is technology, the other is, ethics on data sciences. Then I have my own personal ones, and then I have a frog, shit posting one.
Yeah. If you're trying to make me jealous, I'm not, because
anyway, but the point being,
11 Twitter accounts for me is hell for me. Okay.
Well, I mean,
I know. I'm
basically I run digital campaigns. So, but what I've noticed is the algorithm has changed. So I'm online 14 hours a day nonstop. It's what I do. And you can see the change of information, the change of trends, what's weighted differently. And here we are now just before the American midterms, and people that you do not follow are now on your timeline. Not only that, it's consistent. It's like, so if, let's say, for example, someone's talking about a policy issue with energy, right? And they're trying to say, hey, there's been a war on energy in this administration. which there has been, underneath will be a counter to that you don't even follow. So why is it on your timeline? And the reason it's on your timeline is election meddling, and this is why everyone is so, it sounds good to say you want to stop hate. Mike, what is hate?
That's it differs for every single person.
Exactly.
I mean, it's very, very subjective. So
right. So exactly. So one man's hate is another man's freedom. You know what I mean, right? Look at Iran. They're dealing with a lot of stuff right now. So what looks like justice is really control. And when people look to limit free speech in terms of trust, safety, and outcome, it hurts families. It destroys businesses that you spent years building in the terms of Mike and Threadweird, right?
Mhm.
And it does so insidiously. There's nobody that's there's no transparency. You don't know why it's happening, but you know it's happening.
Yeah.
And
you're just done. All of a sudden you're just done.
Right. And I thought it was quite interesting. That's why I wanted to have a conversation with you now, after the fact that your new business is doing so well. Can you tell us, I guess in our final, we've got, let's say we've got 7 minutes left. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing now. By the way, all of our logos and all of our graphics are done by Mike. So, he's awesome. He does a lot of brands, a lot of high-tech brands. And so if you want something that's edgy and really well done, talk to Mike. He's one of the most creative guys I know. Go ahead, Mike. Talk to us about what you're doing now.
Thank you for that. Well, I mean, that's the graphic design and web design are really my main focuses. So, like I said earlier, I'm focusing on small business. Part of my slogan is specializing in servicing small business. Just because number one, you have entire massive branding and advertising creative agencies that are out there that deal with gigantic brands and gigantic companies. If I could land one of those, great. I would probably drown. All right. Because again, I'm kind of a one-man show. However, I do have a network of trusted experts that I rely on, like Kevin. So and it kind of depends on how many projects I have going at any point. Like I said, I've been at this for roughly 4 months. In the first week, I'm not kidding you. In the first week, like I launched some advertising on a Monday. By Thursday, I had 10 projects.
Jesus.
Okay. So awesome. That's great. I was thrilled. But at the same time, I'm looking at it going, okay, there's absolutely no way that I can do all this by myself. And there, I could do it all by myself, but I wouldn't be able to deliver the quality of work that I demand for myself. And I wouldn't be able to keep it within the desired timelines of my clients. Yeah. So that's where I fall back on some of these experts, especially in the web design area, because that's something I'm still learning. Where somebody's like, I need a website built. In that regard, I'll act as project manager on a lot of those, unless it's something very simple. Same thing goes with graphic design. I try to do all the graphic design myself, because I'm the person that's talking to the client. I can get all the details out of them as far as what they're looking for. I want to learn about their business. I want to learn who they are as a person, what type of vibe they want to get out of their logo or packaging design or whatever it might be. And
I'd like to insert here something. So before anybody just kind of like rolls their eyes, Mike regularly talks with creators and writers from The Simpsons and other very well-named brands about. So Mike does really good creative work, folks. I mean, we're talking legendary stuff here. So he's one of the best creatives I know in terms of like album work, in terms of creating So it's not like logos. I think you
Yeah.
I think you don't understand how good you are, Mike.
Yeah. Logo. Well, I probably don't because, like I said, when I started this business, I was like, there's always that little voice in the back of your head, at least there is in mine, that I had this idea for this business. And that little voice is like, Mike, what are you doing? You don't know what you're doing. But apparently I do. Okay.
Is that the alien?
Yeah, apparently I do. So yeah, and yeah, it like Kevin said, it goes a little bit further than just like logo design. Typically, that's from my perspective, that's kind of a way to get a foot in the door and start building a relationship with a business. Because if I can deliver a stellar logo that they want to plaster on every single thing that they can set their eyes on, and I can do that for like $300 or $400, people are absolutely thrilled, right? And that's what I want to do because I can deliver that. And then whenever they need something else done, or they know of a friend that has a business, or somebody wants a custom T-shirt. I had a lady call me and say, "My husband drives a race car. Here's a picture of it. Want to make racing T-shirts?" I made some awesome racing T-shirts.
Yeah, and you do movie. So the thing is, folks,
Mike, I've done movie posters and that sort of
thing. Yeah, so when people come up, the way you talk about yourself, it's like you're not really good at selling yourself. The guy does movies.
I'm not. I'm sorry, man.
I know. You do movies, you do animation, you do Hollywood stuff. I mean, you come off like you sound like you're some guy in Wisconsin doing logos.
Well, I'm in Minnesota.
Yeah, I know, Minnesota, whatever, same thing. So anyway, Mike, where can people find you?
The best place to find me is actually on the website, which is custompromoconcepts.com.
Okay, we'll have that link in the description. So everybody knows Mike does work for movies, films, albums, professional race car drivers, so it's not some dude in his basement. The guy does amazing work.
I actually just got done doing a bunch of work for a guy that's making a movie on the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah.
Which was right up my alley. So that was a lot of fun, dude.
Documentaries, you name it.
Yeah, so, it was awesome.
Yeah. So Mike is known around the creative and movie industry as well as music. So anyway, I wanted to, kind of talk to what.
Thank you for selling me because
You don't. I mean, you should tell people that you do Hollywood films and stuff. Anyway, that was good. I appreciate your time today, Mike.
Man, thank you.
Yeah. So, as always, Dangerous Data is not representative of any of our sponsors, our brands. We're here to basically educate and inform people about, I guess, the intersection of technology and human experience. And so I appreciate your time today, Mike. Let's have you on again soon.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Stop.